All right, here we go, everybody. Welcome to this segment of the Prevention Perk. I'm really excited to hear more about the Green Dot program. This is something that our guest presenter has spent a lot of time, effort, and energy on in her previous role as a prevention specialist with us here at Community Partnership, and now she's with the MU Extension and still involved in helping us spread the word about Green Dot. So excited about that. We do have, and hopefully whether you're here in the audience now or maybe you watch this on a record later, we do have new segments coming in the near future. We're going to talk about tobacco merchant education visits later in the month of February. And then we're going to talk about some things like the 7 strategies from CADCA for community change. We're going to talk about our Helping Everyone Learn Prevention video series. Those kinds of things and how you can use that video series for instructional purposes. We'll talk about the foster parenting role and how prevention might play a role in that realm. So we've tried to kind of branch out a little bit away from just specifically talking about substances and kind of talk about some of the other issues that the community faces that can be interrelated with substance misuse. So hopefully you can join us in the future for more of those segments. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump into this. Amber Allen is with us this morning. As I said, she works for Missouri Extension. I think probably everybody on this chat right now knows Amber from her previous life with Community Partnership. And correct me if I'm wrong, Amber, but you kind of were the driving force with putting some feet underneath the Green Dot program when you were with Community Partnership. I know you worked really hard to get the attention of college campuses, at least in our service region, with this program. And it's my understanding that Green Dot is now available not just as a college campus project or program, but also community-wide. So I'm always appreciative of learning something more about this particular subject. So I'm going to go ahead and let you just kind of jump right in here and tell us a little bit about the history of Green Dot, at least from the perspective of how it came to Southwest Missouri and then where we're at now. And then I'm always curious as to how, we might be able to help, whether it's, Community Partnership or some of the other people that are on the call, how they can help further that experience, or, how they can help to engage in the efforts that are, already established. So I'll turn it over to you, Amber.
Thank you, Steve. And I just want to say welcome to everyone. And I know we have some other Green Dot trainers on this call, so I just want to say good morning to you all as well. So I'll tell you where we are now, and then I'll give you the history. Now we have a Green Dot committee in Southwest Missouri, and there's about 10 individuals that are actively on there, as well as training both community and college Green Dot. That's where we are today. Where it started was with a sticky note. When I came into my previous job, there's a sticky note that said Green Dot. Anyone that knows me, and if you don't know me, you're going to find this out now, you give me a clue and I want to go dig more for it. So I started looking up, what is this Green Dot thing? What does it do? And I found it, and it started talking about bystander intervention and how you can intervene in a safe way, but in a way that is comfortable for you. And you can do this with domestic violence, sexual assault, and child abuse and neglect. And so that really perked my interest. And how can I work with our violence prevention coalitions in this area to really make this happen? During this was 2013. During this is when the Title IX at colleges changed some of their wording to mandate education on college campuses regarding sexual assault. Well, my connector brain said, ding, 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 this fits within those, the scope of that. So I researched and said, how can we get trainers here to this region? Well, we all know cost is expensive and can sometimes be a barrier. Well, that barrier came, and the only trainings were happening on the East Coast. So I paused it. I had outreach to some people at different parts of the state trying to find out more. Fast forward to about March or April of 2014, got an email that they would be a college train the trainers in Jefferson City in May 2014. Okay, so 2 months to collect people and get them on board. Well, that wasn't a quick enough turnaround for colleges in the sense that it was finals, end of year, spring breaks. So I went up, got trained in college, Green Dot, and said, okay, wherever this goes, I can at least tell people in more detail what this curriculum is like. And so I went and collected the information. And while I was there, they said, well, you should really be on a college campus to train college students. But we'll have a community Green Dot coming. So they dangled the carrot in front of me in 2014. I want you to remember that was 2014. So I come back and I start meeting with our local colleges. Anyone that knows Springfield knows we have 4 colleges here, plus we have some in Joplin and Bolivar in the counties near us. So with that, I met with Drury University, and they were the first college to say, okay, we'll send trainers to the East Coast to get trained. And so they sent a few. One of those trainers would eventually become the Green Dot coordinator for Missouri State University, and that's where she is today. And then the other colleges quickly followed suit as well in the Springfield region of bringing trainers and Green Dot to their college campuses. And so I was, and the higher education committee was able to provide some technical assistance on how can we connect this to everything around us and really intervene at the college level with sexual assault and domestic violence. In the next couple of years, we created Green Dot teams on all of those campuses, as well as Bolivar and Joplin as well, started doing things on their campuses as well. This was in part because Green Dot kind of took a statewide approach from some state agencies. And so that helped us grow within our region with Green Dot. So I don't want to forget to thank them as well, because it was definitely a collaborative effort of different people getting their sticky notes on their desk and finally all talking and really making it what it is today. So with those connections at that level, once again, an email came across that we're bringing Community Green Dot to Springfield back in 2016 or 17. My dates are a little blurry on that. I think it was 2017. Sam can correct me if I'm wrong, because that is when she came in and I said, hey, Sam, you want to get trained in community? I know you're really active when I first met you when I was training Green Dot at your university. And so that she was a student at. And so we got her trained, as well as about 5 or 6 others trained in Community Green Dot for the Greene County area. And with that, it just took off. We were able to create a Green Dot committee and really start getting community actions in the Community Green Dot curriculum within Greene County. And that's where we are today. We were able to get that first group trained in 2017, and then in December 2018, we were able to get additional individuals trained in Greene County. That is when I transferred into my new position and role, but still very active as a trainer. But Community Partnerships still leads that Green Dot initiative here for Greene County, and hoping to grow that to more parts of the region. And really talking about that bystander intervention is necessary. It might look a little different now with COVID, but we're still able to intervene and, be that voice for people that are experiencing domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, and neglect, and be able to intervene and be that help they need during that time. Did they answer your whole question, Steve? I kind of went on my rabbit trail about what Green Dot is. I'm passionate about it.
Absolutely. No, you did. So for those that may not know, can you talk a little bit about, what does Green Dot look like? You don't have the visuals, but what does it look like? How does Green Dot get implemented? And then once it's on campus, what if I were trained in it, or Ashley was trained in it, how would she utilize
So I'll give a scenario. Right now we're only doing the 90-minute overview speeches. That can be done virtual, and Sam will talk about that later, but there's also a 6-hour bystander training that's in person. And what that teaches you is the tools in your toolbox on how to intervene if you see something. And it's just making that one dot or that change. Green dots are intervening, and then we talk about red dots, and this is any power-based personal violence or action that takes place. We're trying to cover those red dots with green dots, whether that's a proactive green dot, which is wearing a t-shirt or saying violence isn't tolerated in our community, or if that's an active green dot. There's an active violence situation that you're observing and you intervene. And we teach you that you can do that directly. You can delegate, which means call 911 or, talk to someone else who might be able to be that voice, or you might be able to distract. And distract looks very different for everyone. This could be saying, hey, do you want to go to the bathroom with me or walk with me? Or this could be starting a dance party in the middle of the room just to distract the individuals from what's going on. Depends on your personality on distract, what that looks like. But we give you those tools in your toolbox, and we talk about your own barriers as well. What might stop you from intervening in a situation? Because I intervene very differently when I'm by myself versus if I have my child with me. My intervention is going to look different in those situations. So we talk about that, and we talk about what barriers we might have in our communities. And it's really just to start that conversation, but also give you those tools to intervene in those scenarios that you might see. And what would you do? It's teaching you how to do those things before you're in those situations. And we talk about, we've probably been in those situations before we knew about Green Dot. And we were like, well, we're not direct, so we don't know what to do in that situation. Or, there's a fear there. And we work through those during that training and really talk about how we can be those active bystanders and really intervene in those situations. Do you have anything to add, Samantha? Okay.
Well, I'm curious. So you're talking about, I understand that the scenario, that you're intervening in different ways, whether it's just a t-shirt and it's intolerable in our community or it's directly. Is this something that's always presented with an understanding that substances are being used? Like if you're at a bar or you're at a party, is that the whole point of Green Dot, that it's bystander intervention, but it's applicable during that particular scenario or that particular setting?
Yes, and so we talk about we talk about all settings, but we talk about those settings as well. A couple of the videos that actually are shown in the training are depicted in restaurant or bar scenes on how to intervene if that's being used as well. But we are careful, those situations you can intervene as a bystander as well if substances are being used. We talk about that violence portion, but this could be the same way you intervene if you assume or you think a mental health issue is arising, or if you think an overdose is occurring with someone, that you can intervene. These same principles could be used during that as well. Does that answer your question, Steve?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I mean, because I was just curious, that I would assume that most people wouldn't just say, well, the only time you would intervene is if somebody's been drinking, because an assault can occur whether people are using substances or not. And I just wondered if the program, differentiates the two, or if the, the specific focus is this is only something that's applicable if you find yourself in the situation where, substances are being consumed.
Yes, and that is completely true, Steve. Exactly what you said. Alcohol or any type of substance isn't the causation. Sexual assault is sexual assault, and substances are separate in the sense that did not cause the sexual assault to occur. So you're correct, Steve, that we talk about it, but we also talk about how they're separate as well.
So the primary focus has been, over the history, as you kind of described it, was getting this installed in each of the campuses. Our service region is Southwest Missouri, so across Southwest Missouri. And is that something that's happened? Is there a Green Dot presence on every campus that is in this area, or is there work yet to be done? And if so, what's a good way to go about getting it on a campus that hasn't adopted this practice?
Well, I think there's a presence, but I always think that you can always grow those presences. That's not really a word, but the presence of something, especially when it's an action item, because you're always getting new students, you're always getting new faculty, you're always getting new community members if you're talking about the Green Dot community presentations. So I don't think it's ever done, and you can never have enough presence because there's always that changes where one person's not going to know about Green Dot or 100 people aren't going to know about Green Dot. So I don't, there's a presence, but I think that's a presence that can always be more knowledge to grow on it. We talk about when we're getting trained about those early adopters. Go for those early adopters who are going to be your cheerleaders and know about the program, but don't stop there, because you're going to get those, you know, I'm going to say 20, but hopefully more than that, that are really on board, really wanting to know about it, really passionate. But you also need to get to those people that might be not as passionate, but still want to know about the issue to really grow that knowledge, because you're always going to have those early adopters, but we want to get past that. We want them trained. We want them as cheerleaders, but we also want the person who has never heard about Green Dot to be trained as well. And so that's going to take a lot of people to make impact. And so a lot of ways you can do those action items is you can get trained in Green Dot, or you can just share a flyer. You can, you know, do a Facebook status that says, you know, I went to a Green Dot presentation today, ask me more. Or you can really talk about, you know, just what Green Dot is, or just share flyers or posters that talk about violence not being tolerated in your community, and really just start that conversation.
Mm-hmm. So you've already mentioned, you know, that this is kind of campus based, but then you've said, you know, community base as well. I mean, is there a difference in the way it's presented to a community member versus the way it's presented to, you know, students on a college campus?
Yes, because everyone's community is different. And so when it's a college base, we really focus on that campus community and what would that look like for a college student or faculty and staff. Where community, we take that broader and we focus on domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse and neglect, and really that whole community and what violence can look like in the community, and focus on more that community member. And community members can look very different. It could be your next door neighbor, or it could be the local Uber driver, or it could be the pizza delivery guy or the mailman. That's what I came up with today. But, you know, there is a slew of who your community members can be versus on a college campus. But knowing that each training, whether it's campus or community, is really focused on what is your community? Is your community your dorm? Is it your campus? Is it your neighborhood? Is it your workspace? And so thinking about what your communities are when you would be implementing Green Dots is key.
Okay. So we have been joined by Jenay. Divin. She's the Green Dot coordinator at Missouri State University, and I know that she's worked a lot with Amber probably since about the very beginning that this kind of started to happen in our region. And I know you haven't heard everything that Amber has shared, Jenay, but can you talk a little bit about maybe how the Green Dot program has kind of evolved on the campus and kind of where it's at today, and maybe some of the challenges that you have faced along the way, maybe how you've addressed some of those challenges?
Oh, yeah. So I was onboarded at Missouri State University in April 2016. And before that, there was no program on the campus. Thankfully for Amber, she kind of tipped me on that because we did both get trained back in 2015, 2014. So to kind of piggyback off of what Amber had said previously, there are a couple different communities in the college campus. So we've got students, and then we've got faculty, staff, and other employees. And so really what we really focus on is stalking and domestic violence and sexual assault. We don't talk a lot about child abuse because we expect that students probably aren't in a position to see those kinds of things. So we really kind of push with students to do reactive green dots. So when they see something that doesn't feel right to them, that they are empowered to do something about it. And then what I try to do with faculty, staff, and with other employees is to really, first of all, let them know that we do have this program on campus. And then second of all, I don't think, and this is what I say in my presentations, is I just don't think that faculty and staff are going to be at the boogie waiting for a red dot to show up. I just don't think they're going to be hanging out downtown in one of the bars waiting for something to happen so they can react. So what I try to let those folks know is that they are in a better position to do more proactive green dots. And I know that Amber's probably spoken about that. And those proactive green dots are something that you can do daily. It can be something really small. It doesn't have to be big. Just something like, checking in with a friend or checking in with a student and saying, hey, I really, I want you to think about what you're going to do this weekend. I hope that you have a plan. I even let them know that, like, when they're, if there's like a student working in their department, asking them, like, what did you do over the weekend? What do you plan to do this week? They can have a green dot pin that they can put on their blazer for whenever they have to do composites for their like sorority or fraternities, or for those faculty members when they do presentations. I also try to provide information for them whenever they have to do like when they do like their PowerPoint slides. And so they can even put like a bystander story in there, and what would the students be doing? So really the challenges is that you're kind of having to compartmentalize that, your students are going to be in a position to actually react to some of these high risk behaviors or these situations. Not to say that faculty and staff won't, but they are better in a position to really be pushing the message that violence isn't tolerated on our campus, and everyone's expected to do their part. And when I explain that, it's not just the students that I'm saying, like, I'm asking everybody to do it, just not just students, but I'm asking, Cliff Smart, our president, Cliff Smart, to, be saying these things of, violence isn't tolerated here. And I'm expected to do my part, and my part is to speak that truth. The same thing with other faculty members. I know sometimes I have some challenges with like the math department. They're thinking like, how am I gonna talk about violence in a math class, Jenay? And so, one thing that I've kind of let them know is that when you present yourself in your classroom, folks may know you as Jenay Divin, the college algebra teacher. By the way, I was not great in college algebra, but it kind of humanizes you. It's like whenever you were back in elementary school and you would see your teacher at the grocery store and you're like, oh my gosh, there's Mrs. Divin. Oh my gosh, I didn't know she went to the grocery store. So it kind of goes back to that, you're humanizing yourself and saying like, yeah, I am a member of my community, and I care about you as a person, as a human, and I also care about your success. And one thing that I like to say on the campus, and I do believe this, is a safe campus is a successful campus. And when I worked at Drury University, hi Ashley, we played in band together back at Drury University. And one thing that I really recognized was some of those students that I worked with at Drury University in student affairs, they didn't see graduation date. And my job to be a student success coordinator was to help them to get to that point. When I kind of did some digging, I realized that they were impacted by some kind of violence, whether that was in their childhood or something that has been impacted in their like college life there at Drury. So I really kind of dug a little deeper, found out about Green Dot thanks to Amber and the CPO and the Higher Education Committee. And that really kind of drove that message of like, we need to be doing better for our students. And so that way they can get that graduation date. And so I do believe, and it kind of goes along with the community as well, that if we're a safe community, we can be successful, and we can be inclusive, and we really do care about our community members. It's really putting It's not this lip service that some of us were like, yeah, we really care about you. It really is putting the work in and putting that action in and really showing up and being present for those folks. Did I answer that question, Steve? It was kind of long-winded.
Yeah, no, that was great. So for either you or Amber, where do you need to go with Green Dot on the campuses where it is now? I mean, more of the same, or is there, are there obstacles that you can perceive that are like, in the perfect world, if we could just get rid of this, what is it that takes Green Dot to the next level on a college campus?
So one thing, that's a great question. One thing that I think kind of is a challenge for us is that Green Dot is based on volunteerism. Like, we are not going to mandate it on our campus. And we recognize that when we mandate certain trainings like this, especially folks are going to show up because they feel like they have to, or they're obligated to. And it's almost like a penial kind of situation where, like, you did something bad, now you have to go to this training. So the challenge is really getting folks to recognize that that they care about the ones around them. And I think one of the problems with college campuses is, and this is kind of long-winded, is students are leaving their families to create a whole new family on campus. And it's our duty to look out for each other. And so getting them to recognize that I'm not with my family. Normally my family would be helping me look out for each other because that's what we do. But you're creating your own family on the college campus. And so it may be something that's understood, or it may be within your friend group that, like, I look out for them, but I really want to give them the permission to really activate that kind of action. And really, in a way, I do this because it's like, really get them to understand that, like, there are their own cliques, and they should have the permission to really take care of each other, right? So I think that can be kind of a challenge, because sometimes I think that we think of Green Dot. When I first came on campus, folks were asking me if it was a recycling program. Thankfully, I think we're here about 5 years after, and folks know where to go. They know who to talk to. They know that there's resources out there, including community partnership, to really dive a little deeper into that kind of information. So I'm so glad that we got to expand it out into, like, the community aspect, because the campus is part of the community. And I think that in and of itself is really kind of very copacetic, and it's very simpatico with each other. So those are, I think, is kind of the challenge. And when you're implementing a program like this for 26,000 students, and there's really only one person to kind of lead the charge, I know it's not one person that does one thing, but it is one person that gets it started, that may be the catalyst to really getting the wheel turning. So.
Well, I've been thinking about this, and I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it. I mean, you can look at the statistics and you can say that assault, domestic violence, sexual assault, whatever it is I'm going to say commonplace. It happens, and people know that because you can look at the statistic. Is there a challenge in sharing this, whether it's on a campus or in a community? It's almost like, in my mind, I would think that some people would just say, well, it just happens, and that's just the way it is, kind of thing. Or, and I hate saying it this way, but when it comes to substance use, oftentimes it becomes, well, what did they expect? They were using drugs or alcohol or whatever. And it becomes almost like we're a victim, that there's nothing that can be done because this just happens. And because they weren't even smart enough to know not to use substances, those things happen. I mean, and that's people don't go around saying what I'm trying to say in a question, but it seems like that really is commonplace. How do you rise above that chatter, or how do you how do you break through that, you know, that silence of denial and say it happens and people are going to continue to use substances, but that doesn't mean we tolerate this kind of behavior. I mean, how do you make an issue out of something that people don't really want to make an issue out of, because, you know, it's just going to happen anyway, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Students, when I ask them, you know, we call those barriers. And normally, it's all like, it's going to be taken care of. It's someone else's problem. It's none of my business. But it is when we see somebody that may be getting this kind of violence toward them, whether that's like a microaggression or it's like a straight up hit, or it's like unwanted touching, or unwanted gifts and showing up unannounced and unwanted. It's part of this education of we instead of normalizing like, well, that's none of my business. I think normally folks care about one another. And when we recognize and when we teach about the bystander effect, and we talk about this in college campuses, and we show them videos of what that's like, I think it kind of, there's like a little light bulb that comes up and they're like, oh yeah, I've seen that before, but I never really knew what to do. And I think sometimes they kind of get worried of like, if I was to do something, what if there's retaliation against me? So I think it's kind of hard to explain. It is a yes and, where we need to be doing better of, you know, letting people know that they can do something, you know, despite the barriers that may stop them. And we talk about this in the community aspect too, where, you know, you might not be in a position to do something at that point, but maybe there's somebody else that can, you know, like calling for our campus, you know, calling our university safety. Those folks are there to report to those kinds of things. Or calling Jill Patterson, our Title IX officer, and really letting her know like, hey, I saw this thing and I wasn't really sure. So I think really just kind of when you see something that's not right, and I think Amber can speak to this too, when it's something that you're taking a look and you're really analyzing it and you're really seeing it and observing this, and your mind is thinking like, should I do something? Then that's probably a sign of like, maybe you should. And whether that is calling somebody for help or getting someone else to do it, or you know, hitting your key fob to distract them, or directly saying like, hey, knock it off. Hey, that's not okay. Hey, what I'm seeing is not jiving with what I'm cool with, so to speak. I don't know if students actually say that. But I think, you know, letting them know that this is not okay. I think sometimes too, Steve, it's hard for students to, especially if it's happening with older folks, like if they observe something and then it's this tension is happening between two older folks, I think they have a hard time really like speaking up, because, you know, they've been told that like, you're young, you're stupid, you don't know what you're talking about, you don't know what you're doing. But I really think that if we can empower those students in saying like, well, wait a second, I don't think that's right. I think that can really start, you know, kind of breaking that cycle of allowing, you know, violence to really penetrate into our community. And I think too, what we're talking about, a lot of this stuff happens behind closed doors. And it's hard for folks to really see this stuff. So it's really kind of these little small things of like, like I mentioned, like coercing somebody into doing something they don't want to do, or threatening somebody, or these nonverbal cues of like, gritting teeth and, posturing over somebody and wagging your finger at somebody. These are some things that I think that as bystanders, that we can kind of be tipped on, and then we can kind of figure out a way to de-escalate that situation. Amber, what do you got to say?
Well, you did a great job, but I just wanted to add, we talked a lot about those proactive green dots and how to intervene and how those barriers might play a role, but it's also about our cultural shift of saying it's okay to talk about this, it's okay to intervene. So that's more of those proactive green dots of saying violence isn't tolerated, or when someone new comes to your community, whether this is, violence isn't tolerated here, or those jokes aren't tolerated here, because it'll have that ripple effect. You might tell your one or two friends, hey, I'm not okay with that, or that's not okay, and intervene, and they might witness you intervene on another group of people, or you might just say a proactive green dot. Well, now those two people have that knowledge. Well, then those two people tell their three friends, and you see where this is going. And so you have that cultural shift. I don't know if anyone's ever seen the video of one person started a dance party in this park, and by the end, there's hundreds of people with him. But it's that analogy. It takes, Jenay said, it takes that one person to intervene. Well, it also takes that one person to start those proactive green dots and having those conversations. Not only friends with their friends, I gave that analogy, but within their own homes, with whoever their living room, roommates, spouses, their children, because it's going to have that ripple effect right now to make a cultural shift, but also for the next generations. So also having those conversations earlier as well. We focus a lot on that college campus and the community, but remembering having those conversations at home and, modeling what a proactive green dot looks like, because that's going to have that ripple effect to have that cultural shift to what Steve was referring to. It's not, I don't feel like it's my place, kind of the apathy of, I'm not going to, it's not my problem. All the things we hear on barriers when we do our green dot training, but really making that cultural shift, that it's okay to talk about and it's okay to intervene, and that as a community we can decrease violence.
Well, I know that, sexual assault happens across the community, and I'm not an expert on this, so correct me if I'm wrong. There's probably a higher incidence of it on a campus or amongst a younger demographic. And I don't know if that's true or not, but the green dot has really been effective, in getting onto the college campuses. But then there's this need for the green dot conversation within the broader community. And is that kind of what the intersection of the campus green dot is and the community green dot? Is there kind of an intersection there where if the broader community is adopting some of this understanding and some of this practice, then it reinforces what happens on the community? And if so, is that illustrated in that community awareness, community training? Because I know that Samantha's been on the Zoom with us, and that she does an overview speech of green dot. And is that what the goal is of something like that? Bring awareness to it and say, this isn't just happening on a campus, this happens in the community, but we need to reinforce this through our dialogue in the broader community, so younger individuals on a college campus or younger individuals in the community aren't afraid to step up and say something and feel like it's the right thing, or they're empowered to say something and feel like they're going to be heard without being retaliated against. Is that, am I overcomplicating it, or is that what it's there for? Is it's designed as an intersection between the campus and the community?
So I think you're kind of speaking to something where we all know that most students, because, let's face it, Springfield is a college town, although it's probably more town than college. I don't know. It's not like Fayetteville. It's not like Columbia area where there's, tigers everywhere and Mizzous everywhere. What's really unique about Springfield is it seems like it's more like a town, and then we just have some colleges here, which is kind of neat. But one thing that we do know is that a lot of these students are only here for a couple of years, and our community members live here. So it would be I don't know how to explain it, but it would make more sense if our community really engaged in green dot behavior and really pushed the needle of this culture change, so that way when students are here, like you spoke of to Steve, that they understand that this is part of the life in Springfield. This is part of what we do here in Springfield. So when they do volunteer at your agencies, or when they go out into the community, because they're not going to go volunteer like in Illinois or in Oklahoma, they're going to stay here so they can still do their studies. I think that's really going to push the message of what Green Dot is. And I think I think it would be easier to digest, so to speak. So I think there is this intersectionality. Again, the faculty and staff and the employees here at Missouri State do live here, and they're not just here for 5 years and they're like, all right, see you later, I'm graduated. They actually live here. They have lives here. So I think that's kind of where we can kind of really be pushing this thing, instead of it being like on these little pockets of OTC and SBU and Drury University and at Missouri State University. It's not just an isolated thing. It's more of a, well, we're better together, so let's share what we know. And I think that's really what we're trying to do with Green Dot Community. And I think that's what Amber and I have really tried to we've really tried to push, as far as getting the Green Dot Community on in Springfield. And I think that was back in 2018 when we did that. So we've made strides. I definitely think that we've made some really great strides, and we've got some more folks that are interested in the trainings that we're doing. And I think also too, the fact that we offer these things and they're free or low, it's a low charge. I think that's super great for folks to really get involved, because it's, you show up as you are. You show up as Jenay, the Green Dot coordinator at Missouri State. You show up as Jenay, the Springfield native, Jenay, all the other roles that you play in the community. I think that's what's so great about Green Dot, is it just takes you from where you're at and then really just kind of builds on that. Amber, what you got?
You did a great job, Jenay, connecting it. So I have nothing to add with that question.
Well, I want to hear, because I know probably both you and Amber and Jenay are trained in this, but I know that Samantha and Katie Weatherman in our office have recently been trained in the community, or the Green Dot overview. It's like a brief training, or just an introduction. Is that what it is? And can you kind of flesh that out a little bit and help me understand and help everybody else understand what the overview is and what its purpose really is?
Yes, I'll kind of give a brief synopsis of it, but Amber and Jenay and Katie, feel free to join in as well. It basically teaches you what Amber and Jenay have been talking about. We go in depth about the different ways that you can intervene. We talk about a variety of different types of violences and kind of the warning signs of those things. And yeah, how to best help someone through that, specifically based on your personality and what you feel comfortable with. But really what it is it is an 1.5 hour overview training of the more in-depth kind of 6-hour training that we would do in person. And right now we can't do that full training just because they haven't shifted that into a Zoom format for us to do virtually. But you really do still get a lot of the information that we do in that full training. So I highly recommend still attending that, even if you haven't gone through that full 6-hour training, because you'll still get a lot out of it and still feel pretty equipped to intervene in a situation where you're noticing power-based personal violence occurring. And also we still talk about proactive green dots and how to still, give that message that violence isn't tolerated, and different tips and ways that you can do that as well. So yeah, highly recommend attending that. And I will be putting a flyer in the chat because we have one coming up on February 17th. But do you all want to add to that at all? Is there a better way to kind of distinguish those two that I'm not explaining well?
I think you did a really good job, but also during like the bystander training and the overview speech, not only are we teaching this information, but there's also scenarios within the training, everything that the participants to figure out what they could do in that situation, and they get to talk about what, well, you know, my personality or what I would feel comfortable doing. They get to practice those skills as well, because there are scenarios throughout the training as well. And I think that's really helpful to be able to talk with other participants about, and it's cool as a instructor being able to see the different ways that people come up with that they can handle that situation. And it's just really neat, because then it's like, oh, I didn't think about that, and you just hear all these different ideas, and it really comes together that everybody can do something in a situation, and it's a really neat thing.
I'd like to add that the overview is more like a snack, and then like the training is the meal. So the overview is very much like more of a lecture style. There's not a lot of interaction, like Katie had said. So like the training itself, we really give space for those to work out some of these scenarios. We try to customize some of these scenarios to something that we think that population, or that those that have registered, what they would really see. So I really think, and speaking, I'm a competitive person, so they also like create teams within this training, and then they like compete for like the prizes, which are normally like candy, which is great, and of course like the pride and you know, bragging rights that you were like part of this team that won this training. And normally there's like some kind of like green dot gear that you can get from it too. So like I said, I think the overview is more like a snack, and I think that like the training is like the meal. And so that's where you can really dive deep into some of those scenarios and really try to find solutions to those. But the overview is more of a generic, this is what we're going to talk about in the training. It's kind of like the invite to the training itself.
So Nikki asked in the chat, is there a high school version of Green Dot available?
The answer is yes. I do not know if it's in revision at the moment, because a lot of the curriculum is getting some updates. No, high school is good. Jenay just nodded at me. But I will say there are some deliverables you have to do to make high school happen. There has to be individuals trained in the schools that it is being implemented in. So students always have someone to go to, that they know someone is Green Dot safe, or, you know, knows what they're talking about if they do a Green Dot, just to debrief. So there's some additional layers to the high school version that have to happen. There's no one to my knowledge in this area that is trained in the Green Dot high school version. I'm looking at Jenay because she would be the other person that would know if anyone was trained in high school. We have looked at it in the past, but it is hard when you need someone in every school building trained in Green Dot to implement it. And we have the largest school district in the state. So that's a lot of people to train. And like I said, when we first started this for the college, cost can be a barrier to get some of these curriculums going when they're stationed in Washington, D.C. For trainings. So we have the first two layers. And so hopefully eventually that can happen. But at this point, I don't know. Thank you, Sam. Sam put it in there.
I was just thinking maybe we could do it for the Boys and Girls Club, because then we could train all the teen directors or teen staff at the Boys and Girls Club, so they would always have somebody to go to. Just trying to think outside the box.
I like your outside the box thinking.
We'd be willing to do that for sure.
Does it have to be an actual school, Jenay? That would be my only concern. Do you know?
You know, I was just going to say for Nikki, I think because those folks at the Boys and Girls Clubs normally work with students, I really think that like them going through the community would be really a really nice fit for them. I think at this point, like had Amber said, the middle school and the high school programs are a barrier because we do have to have those teachers and those administrators trained. But it seems to me that the Boys and Girls Club are within the community. These are community people. Therefore, I think that would be a really good fit for them.
Well said, Jenay.
So thanks for all the information. I'm curious from any of the ones of you that are kind of promoting this, where do you want to go next? I mean, what do you say, you know, this is my next to do, or this is on the bucket list to accomplish next with Green Dot in Springfield or on a campus or in Southwest Missouri? What's the next step, and are there maybe there's some people that are listening, or you'll hear after some people have viewed this, ways that maybe they can help you reach that next level?
Come to a training. If you're on this call and haven't been through a training before, come to the February 17th one. If that date doesn't work for you, we'll have others. And if you're part of an organization, we would love to do a private one as well. Right now, it's only the hour-and-a-half overview speeches, but that's a start. And then with that, you get a Green Dot newsletter. And then you can share that and share information. And just sharing the trainings if you have gone through it, but you're getting the flyers for the February 17th or any of our trainings, just sharing that so we can grow that information. And Jenay might have some other goals for College Pacific, but that's my personal goal, is just keep telling people about Green Dot. Anyone who knows me somehow finds out about Green Dot in the first, couple months of knowing me.
How do people find out about, I mean, through community partnership, they could find out about Green Dot, or if they know you or Jenay or however that works, but how does, community XYZ or, an organization or an individual find out about Green Dot? I mean, is there a local touch point, a place where they can find out more about it?
Yeah, we have a Facebook page, and that was like one of the first directives with the group was we need to somehow have some way that we can kind of, celebrate successes and post our training. So our Facebook page is something to look into. I think you can put in the search bar, Green Dot Springfield, and it should pop up, and it has like a little Green Dot logo, and I think it says Green Dot Springfield on it. So I think that would be something. Another thing I'd love to add is if you decide to come to the training on the 17th, bring a friend or 5. I know that maybe it might be too late for them to get registered, but that's something that we can adjust to. I would love for us to have more people in our trainings and say like, this is how many people that we got trained. I think that's one way that we can get some more folks to understand and know what we're doing. I know one thing that really helps on our campus is to refer students. So I will have students at the end of my trainings to submit 2 names of anybody that they know that could benefit from this. Or when they are at a signups for a table, I ask them, can you write down one name, one email of somebody? Then I'll turn around, send them an email and say, hey, Jenay referred you for this Green Dot training. It's coming up, and here's a registration link. I really think that that's been really helpful, and that gives praise to the person that referred the person. And then the person that receives the referral is like, gosh, I feel super cool because this person referred me. So I think that's another way that we can really be pushing it along is by that referral or nomination process.
Thanks. Great information. So we are right at an hour now. So is there any, appreciate y'all being here and helping me to understand, and we will put this Zoom conversation on the CPO YouTube page. There's a couple of others that are up there now, and I'm hoping to get this one turned around fairly quickly. I'd like to have it available for you to share before your February 17th training, just in case there's some people that would like to know more about Green Dot. So any last Lynette thoughts or comments before we go off to enjoy our coffee in other places?
I have a really quick question. So Missouri State campus has those tall things with the light and you like push the button, right? If you're in trouble. Do you guys have any kind of Green Dot messaging on that?
So those, we call those blue lights. Those, we do not have, to answer your question, Ashley, we do not have any messaging on it because those lights go directly to our university safety. So that it's kind of like they're doing a green dot when they're hitting the button, so to speak, not that they know that. But one thing that we have been trying to implement is for our safety officers to wear some kind of green dot button or wear some kind, or have, I have like little cards where it's like, here's how you can do little green dots. And so I have them take, you know, a stack whenever they go out and they do, you know, like they unlock the doors to some of the buildings for some students. We've even talked about getting some kind of like, they wear a hat on Fridays. And so like they have something that they can wear, because I've been trying to get them to wear something on their uniform and that's been like, no. But maybe something like a hat or maybe like gloves or something that they can, or even just like a window cling on their patrol vehicle to kind of say like, this is what Green Dot is, and here's the number, here's the website. So in turn, the blue lights are kind of Green Dot related, but as far as like messaging is concerned, there's no messaging on the blue lights, and there's like 30 something of those things, so that would be a lot of money for me to message. But one thing I do have is we do have a traveling banner, and so the banner you know, goes around some of the buildings. And so they'll have it like reserved. So University Hall, which is now going to be the new academic success office, they had it up for like a year. And so I think one of the residence halls was gonna, they offered, they were like, yeah, we'll put it up on our outside our residence for, you know, a couple weeks or for a month. And then the rec center said that, yeah, sure, we'll put it up in, you know, outside of our building. I've even kind of thought about, you know, we have that fountain in the middle of the thing, and maybe getting some lights, because we can't get the water to turn green, but maybe we can get the lights in the fountain and change those, because light bulbs are much cheaper than having to clean up green water. So there's some things in the process that I think would be super cool for us to implement on the campus. That's not completely invasive. It doesn't mess up the whole like look of the campus, but it also really kind of pushes the message forward. But great question.
Any other thoughts, comments? All right. Well, thanks everyone for being here today. And like I said, this will be posted, and I'll share the link with everyone that was on today, so that you can further that out to your connections, and we can help spread the word about Green Dot and maybe help facilitate some future community trainings on the project. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.